On January 25, 1978, the Great Lakes region operated under standard winter protocols. Road crews maintained salt reserves and plow rotations. Power utilities staffed normal shifts. Interstate highways carried commercial and commuter traffic at expected volumes. Residential heating systems drew natural gas and electricity from regional grids. The forecast called for snow, a routine winter event in the industrial corridor spanning Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and western Pennsylvania. Infrastructure functioned within design parameters. No emergency declarations were active. Cities prepared for another manageable winter storm using established procedures. The Great Lakes Basin contains major population centers dependent on road networks and centralized power distribution systems. Cleveland, Detroit, Toledo, Buffalo, and dozens of smaller cities anchor manufacturing economies requiring continuous transport connectivity. Interstate 75, 80, and 90 form arterial routes for freight movement and labor commuting patterns. Electrical grids serve population densities exceeding 500 persons per square mile in urban cores. Natural gas heating is the standard residential system. Winter operations assume plowable snowfall rates and maintainable road visibility under normal lake effect conditions. Lake effect snow is endemic to the region, but typically remains localized to shoreline communities. Regional infrastructure systems are engineered for persistent cold and moderate snowfall, not for sustained wind-driven snow events across multiple states simultaneously. The January baseline assumed operational continuity. A low-pressure system developed over the southern plains on January 24, drawing warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. The cyclone tracked northeast at moderate speed, moving into collision with Arctic air masses descending from central Canada. By early morning on January 25th, the system intensified rapidly as it crossed the Ohio Valley corridor. Central pressure dropped to 982 millibars within 6 hours. The storm's forward motion slowed dramatically, maintaining position over the Great Lakes region for more than 36 consecutive hours. Wind fields expanded outward from the center. Temperature gradients between air masses sharpened across the convergence zone. The cyclone became effectively stationary, continuously feeding on the thermal contrast between frozen land surfaces and the relatively warm waters of the Great Lakes. Meteorological conditions aligned for sustained heavy snowfall and high wind coupling across a 5-state area. Sustained winds exceeded 50 miles per hour across Ohio and Michigan, with gusts reaching 75 miles per hour in exposed terrain. Snow fell at rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour continuously. Wind transport converted vertical snowfall into horizontal motion. Visibility dropped to 0 within minutes of intensification and remained at 0 for over 24 hours in affected zones. The atmosphere became completely opaque to human vision. Ground reference points disappeared entirely. Vehicle operators lost all spatial orientation while in motion. Pedestrians could not navigate across open ground, even over distances of 20 feet. The interaction between sustained wind velocity and dense snowfall created a regional obscuration event unprecedented in scope. Air effectively became a solid medium of suspended ice crystals. All voluntary movement ceased. The blizzard conditions were not localized or intermittent. They were regional and continuous for more than a full day and night. Wind did not distribute snow accumulation evenly across the landscape. Snow accumulated in massive drifts rather than uniform layers. Open terrain scoured down to bare pavement, while depressions, ditches, and leeward slopes filled to depths of 10 feet or more. Highway cuts designed for drainage became entrapment channels. Vehicles disappeared beneath drift formation in under an hour. Building exits sealed completely, trapping occupants inside structures. Utility poles snapped under asymmetric loading as drifts built against supporting structures. Snowplow blades struck consolidated snow masses that exceeded the mechanical shear limits of equipment. Roads that appeared temporarily clear refilled within 10 to 15 minutes of plowing passes. The snow surface remained unstable throughout the event. Continuous wind reshaped accumulation patterns in real time. Static removal operations proved completely ineffective. The landscape became effectively fluid. Fixed infrastructure could not respond to dynamic and continuous reburial. Interstate 75 closed completely in Michigan from the Ohio border to Flint. Interstate 80 shut down across the entire width of Ohio. Interstate 90 became impassable from Cleveland eastward to Erie, Pennsylvania. State police lost radio communication with stranded motorists as vehicles stopped in place. Thousands of vehicles halted simultaneously, unable to reverse direction or advance through accumulating drifts. Drivers abandoned cars in lanes and sought shelter in exposed terrain with no visible landmarks. Fuel reserves in idling vehicles depleted within hours. Carbon monoxide poisoning occurred in vehicles buried by drifts with exhaust pipes blocked by snow. Emergency services could not reach stranded populations, ambulances and tow trucks immobilized in the same conditions. The highway system ceased to function as a transportation network. It transformed into a distributed entrapment zone spanning 3 states. Vehicle recovery operations did not begin for 72 hours. Electrical transmission lines collapsed under combined ice accumulation and sustained wind loading. Distribution substations lost grid connectivity as feeder lines failed. Power outages affected over 500,000 customers in Ohio alone, with additional hundreds of thousands affected in Michigan and Indiana. Natural gas pressure dropped across regional networks as electric compressor stations failed without backup power. Residential heating systems shut down in temperatures below 0 Fahrenheit. Utility repair crews could not access damage sites due to complete road closures and zero visibility conditions. Repair timelines extended from hours to multiple days. Telecommunications networks failed progressively as backup battery systems depleted after 8 to 12 hours. Hospitals operated on emergency generators with finite on-site fuel supplies. Municipal water treatment plants reduced output or ceased operations. Sewage lift stations risked overflow and environmental contamination. Critical infrastructure services became time-limited operations. System degradation was sequential, compounding, and accelerating. Cleveland declared a Level 3 snow emergency and instituted a complete ban on all non-essential vehicle travel under penalty of arrest. Toledo closed all city offices and government operations. Detroit halted all public bus service indefinitely. Employers could not reach workplaces even when facilities remained operational. Regional supply chains broke completely. Grocery delivery trucks could not reach stores. Fuel tanker trucks could not refill gas stations. Pharmacies exhausted existing stock with no resupply capability. Schools remained closed for 7 consecutive days in most districts. Police and fire emergency responses slowed to walking speed. Vehicles abandoned in favor of on-foot response. Snow depth exceeded the blade capacity of standard municipal plows on residential streets. Removal required front-end loaders and dump trucks, equipment unavailable in sufficient numbers for simultaneous citywide deployment. Cities functioned at bare subsistence levels. Normal municipal operations did not resume for 10 full days in severely affected areas. The storm directly affected approximately 10 million people across 5 states: Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and New York. At least 70 deaths were directly attributed to blizzard conditions, primarily from exposure, vehicle entrapment, and carbon monoxide poisoning in stranded vehicles. Hundreds more suffered frostbite, hypothermia, and cold-related injuries requiring hospitalization. Economic losses exceeded $100 million in 1978 currency equivalents. Over 100,000 vehicles were abandoned on highways and required coordinated recovery operations. National Guard units from multiple states deployed under emergency orders to assist in evacuation operations and mechanized snow removal. The event immediately became the benchmark disaster for winter storm preparedness in the Great Lakes region. It revealed the systemic fragility of interdependent urban infrastructure under sustained meteorological assault. The 1978 blizzard demonstrated that duration, not just intensity, could produce catastrophic regional failure. Snow removal operations required deployment of military engineering assets, including Army National Guard heavy equipment battalions. Front-end loaders cleared interstate highways over a 72-hour period of continuous operations. Residential street clearing took an additional 2 to 3 weeks in most municipalities. Dump trucks hauled snow to designated emergency disposal sites, primarily lakefront areas and vacant industrial lots. Power grid restoration prioritized hospitals and critical infrastructure facilities first. Full residential grid recovery required 7 days of round-the-clock utility crew deployment. Natural gas service resumed gradually as compressor stations returned to operation. Interstate highways reopened in phases, beginning 72 hours after storm conclusion. Regional supply chains restored functionality after 10 days. Schools reopened in mid-February after extended closures. The recovery phase exposed severe shortages in municipal workforce capacity and heavy equipment availability. City governments exhausted annual snow removal budgets within 1 week. Federal disaster declarations enabled cost recovery and emergency funding access.
full normal operations resumed by late February 1978.
The National Weather Service classified the event as a historic blizzard of record-breaking scope and impact. It remains cataloged as one of the most severe winter storms in Great Lakes recorded history. The storm prompted immediate changes in emergency management protocols across the region, including improved forecast communication systems and pre-positioned emergency resource staging. Ohio and Michigan legislatures revised snow emergency statutes to provide clearer authority for travel bans and emergency declarations. Infrastructure design standards were updated to incorporate structural lessons from the 1978 failure modes. The blizzard demonstrated conclusively that winter storms could produce systemic regional failure comparable in scope to hurricanes and other conventionally recognized major disasters. Regional vulnerability to meteorological event duration, not just peak intensity, became a recognized planning factor. The 1978 Great Lakes blizzard is taught in emergency management and civil engineering curricula as the baseline winter disaster scenario for infrastructure resilience planning.